Hey now, welcome back. We are here on the Standout in Your Career podcast presented by Alumni Relations at Saginaw Valley State University. I'm Nick Taylor, Executive Director of Alumni Relations, and today, really excited for today's topic. Got a close friend who's with us, but we're going to be talking about knowing what level you want to work at. So is it time to really aspire to all the way up to that C-suite level in your organization, or is it time to take some stock and grow in the current position you're at? And I'm very happy to have Dr. Karl Rishe, the Chief Learning and Membership Experience Officer for the Children's Hospital Association. Welcome, Karl. How are you doing?
Great to be here, Nick.
I think I'm most impressed with your title, not because of just the chief in front of it, but the length. I think anytime there's a length like that, it always helps.
Lots of room for me to misspell something in there, right? Like the word experience.
I love it. I love it. You're doing awesome. All right, so let's talk a little bit about, today's topic. Everyone talks about climbing the ladder, right? We all think about climbing the ladder, but how do you know what rung you want to stop at? And I think that's one of the things that a lot of folks, especially mid-career or early in their career, we have these major aspirations, and then a whole host of experiences happen to us, and we kind of figure it out along the way. I really want to dive in today whether that C-suite level is something that somebody really wants to get to. And so I want to ask, maybe give us a little history of your experience being a C-suite executive now, a little bit of your experience, how you got there, and some of the questions that you asked yourself along the way. And we'll start from there.
Yeah. Thanks, Nick. A quick snapshot of my career. So obviously I did my undergrad here at Saginaw Valley State University in a land far, far away called the 90s.
We were there. It was fun.
It was fun. And we were talking previously, but none of it is on camera.
Thankfully.
Right?
Yep, absolutely.
And then I spent the first 20 years of my career in higher education. I worked at another place called Grand Valley State University.
Boo, but that's okay.
I worked at Ashland, Case Western Reserve University. I found myself in housing and then working in academic advising and then running everything from operations to first-year students. Then I volunteered to be a Title IX investigator, and things just started happening for me. At a really early age, I became a dean of students. So I was at a C-suite when I was 34.
Oh, very cool.
And that was really challenging, right? Along the way, I went back to school several times, got 2 different master's degrees, completed my doc, and then we moved back to Michigan in 2017. At the pandemic, I experienced a career shift. Right. I had a tremendous opportunity to run a pretty darn large vaccine clinic, which got me exposed to healthcare, which then got me exposed to executive consulting within healthcare, which then an opportunity at the Children's Hospital Association opened up. I was lucky enough to do that. So my career has not been a clear shot trajectory. I've had different experiences from running housing units, handing out keys, to being crisis on call and being the first responder to somebody who's taken their life, to $127 million building project around a football stadium in the middle of the city of Cleveland, to vaccine clinic, to now, overseeing what it means to be a member of the Children's Hospital Association. So that's been a little bit of the snapshot of my career.
So you mentioned the 90s. I want to take you back to the beginning. The thing that I see a lot of people have the ambition, but maybe not necessarily the vision. Did you have the ambition/vision back in the 90s when you were going through college that said, I want to be a leader at this level? Or is that something that developed over time?
I think it definitely develops over time. Sometimes we talk about people who had a chip on their shoulder, and I definitely think I had/have some type of a chip on my shoulder. I've learned throughout the years to cover that up or how to use that to my advantage. I will be very honest, in college, I did everything, right? I tried out for the basketball team. I sang in the choir. I was an RA. I was a member of a fraternity. There was nothing I didn't try. And then also try to be the top person at. I found myself not being satisfied with what was provided, but I didn't quite understand like what the next step was, like what more I could do. So I definitely felt myself being pulled in the 90s, in the 2000s. So that's kind of that magic part of somebody's career, and I call it in your 20s. In your 20s, you're supposed to get good at something, right? They call that the expert level. If you were an accountant, you'd get really good at accounting, right? If you were a nurse, you'd get really good at procedural stuff, right? You could say, I can start an IV on anyone, right? And when you're in your 20s, you learn how to be that expert in different settings, but you're really narrow in what we would call your aperture. Then you get to your 30s and you become an achiever. And that really kind of goes up to another step of how do I achieve goals in a higher level piece in an organization, right? Maybe you're overseeing a unit and you have goals that are important to you for that unit. And then that final level that they talk about in leadership is a synthesizer of ideas, and that is someone who is looking after the mission of the institution, of the organization, who is looking at holistic problems, systematic problems. I found myself very early pushing away from some of the expert pieces and gravitating towards systematic problems. That also in my career probably sometimes has become my bugaboo. My staff will joke right now that, and I know it, I am really good step 1, 2, 3, 9, 10. And I need great people to fill in those other numbers.
That hits home right there. Absolutely. I look back and I think something you and I share in common is that you talked a little bit about that chip on your shoulder. Some folks have an idea of the outcome that they want to get already. Some folks have the idea of the prestige or the things that they want to accomplish, but not necessarily are looking at the outcomes, if that makes sense. Let's take a step back and talk about kind of that C-suite senior leadership levels. Are there some common misconceptions that you see, especially younger professionals have about folks in that role or what that role would be like if they were in it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it can be different depending on the industry, because I've been a C-suite at a couple different industries. The one piece that is consistent is you are on, right? You are on as a public figure. You are on as the things that come out of your mouth mean something. You are also pulled in multiple directions. I talk to folks a lot of times earlier in their career kind of about 5 buckets. There are 5 areas in your life that you can pour energy into. When you're in a C-suite, one of those buckets is career, and you're pouring everything into that bucket. Those other buckets, you have to be really disciplined about what you're putting in those buckets, and those other parts have to be okay with it. And if you're familiar with those buckets, you talk about family, talk about friends, talk about your health, and you talk about your hobbies. Hobbies can be like if you go to church or your spirit or any of those pieces, and then your career. And you can't have it all at once. So you have to understand if you're at an ability to pour different pieces in a bucket. A lot of times folks will say, I want to do this, but I'm not going to move. Well, then that'll hurt you. Or I'm not going to travel. Well, then you're constricting what you can put in that bucket.
Right.
Some of those buckets you have choice over, some of them you don't, right? If you have a sick parent, you need to take care of, right? You have to put more in that bucket. Can't put more in the other bucket. We talk about health, and that's one of the pieces that I think don't recognize sometimes the folks that are really good at the C-suite. They're really good at sleep. They're really good at sleep, right? Because they know it recharges them. They know it resets their body. They know they can't run at that pace the whole time. They have to rest. They are really disciplined. If they're on the road, they're in the gym. What they put in their body is important to them. So there's different pieces that they can dial up, they can't dial up. They may find themselves being very distant to friends. They just don't have time for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I try to serve time in the community. I serve on a bunch of different boards, but I'm really disciplined about that. When do they meet? How much do I need to contribute? Does this use any of my talents? So when you're asking like, okay, do you know, well, think about those 5 buckets. What parts are you willing to shrink?
Yeah. I think, I love the concept of the buckets, and there's only a finite amount of yourself that you can put in each of those buckets. I think the difficult part of it is all 5 of those are really important. They're 100% important to that, and so we find ourselves saying, "Yeah, we've got to put everything into all 5." I want you to think back, kind of as you've gone through your career in that, and without getting too personal, I'm not looking at that, but of those buckets, how did you prioritize? How did you sit back and say, okay, I need to take some time. If I'm really going to be, successful in my career and I need to put 10 into it, how do you make the decision in those other buckets of where to cut?
Sometimes those decisions will be made for you.
Yeah.
I can think of, I was a marathon runner in my late 20s, early 30s. And then I was working on my dissertation. I was working full time. And then we had Cal. And all of a sudden, I wasn't a marathon runner anymore. Yeah. I had to figure out when I was going to work on my dissertation. I was serving as a dean of students, so there wasn't an opportunity to have like long runs. And I needed to spend time with my staff. And I had blinked, and 3 years went by. And I realized, oh my gosh, it's been 3 years since I ran anything over than 6 miles, right? And I had to kind of see that some of those decisions were made for me because I automatically prioritized being a dad.
Right.
The other piece that I would say that hit me in that time, there are points where you're really productive. So we talk about like the bucket's only so big.
Sure.
But I can spend time in a bucket and it can be really powerful time. So when we first had Cal, I was putting him into bed. He's 11 years old now. Seems like 1,000 years ago. And then I would work on my dissertation because I'd worked all day. And my mind was a disaster. I wasn't really productive. I was sluggish. I wasn't getting enough writing done. And then I got some good advice from somebody that said, eat that big hairy frog first, right? Everybody's heard that concept.
Sure.
Well, I was brought up, I worked in the shop at Ford Motor Company going through college. I worked really early in the shift, and I found out I was really productive in the morning, and I always got up. And well, what did I do? I sacrificed my morning run time where I was really productive for my morning writing time.
Yeah.
Because my son was still sleeping. And Renee was off to the OR at the Cleveland Clinic. So that hour and a half was my most productive writing. So filling that bucket of developing myself, I could have spent 8 hours at night after work and not got done what I got done in an hour and a half in the morning. So sometimes it is the discipline of like, when am I most productive in this bucket?
Right. And
understanding that sometimes those priorities will shift for you. And it's important not to ignore it.
It's interesting as you're saying that I can't help but think about the adage, time is currency. Yeah. And how we spend our time is more important than how we spend our money. And, when we're looking at those different buckets, it also makes me wonder, and going a little off script here, we talk about the generations coming up through college, and a lot of our alumni, we are very, we work very closely with our gold alumni, graduates of the last decade. We were talking about that. There is a newfound, I think it's a very positive thing, but a newfound not stress, but importance set on mental health and, workplace conditions and those. So I feel like maybe we're putting more energy and time in that bucket. Do you think that that's going to affect the ability for folks coming up in their career now to sit back and say, okay, I'm putting a lot of time and energy in my mental health bucket, which is important, and nobody is disagreeing with that. But if you're going to reach a certain level in your career, you're also going to need to put 100% into that career bucket at some time. How do we balance that question? What's maybe a transition or something that has happened to you in your career path that you think would help to train,
Sometimes it is about your boss.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So having real clear expectations from your supervisor
Mm-hmm.
is really important. There is one of those pieces where somebody may say, I want you to be balanced. I want you to take care of yourself, but also your workload that I'm dictating to you is way past anything that would allow you to be balanced.
Right.
Right? Because now you're getting mixed messages and I'm a high achiever. I have to get this done,
Mm-hmm.
even though I think I want to be balanced. I think we do have a lot of now concentration and attention to well-being.
Mm-hmm.
I think generations push back on the different definitions of balance.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean to be healthy?
Mm-hmm.
I try to think about, do you have space? So do I have space to be calm?
Mm-hmm.
Do I have space to think?
Mm-hmm.
Do I have space to reflect? Do I have space to flex time in a way that I want to get better or spend time with people? If you find yourself not having space,
Mm-hmm.
that's like not having time.
Right.
Then, okay, it's probably time to take a step back
Mm-hmm.
and say, how do I create space? I can't pass you the ball as an employer if you don't have any space, if I don't see that you're calm. So when you think about your mental health, what are things that help you create space?
Mm-hmm.
Getting good sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Professional development. I'll be the first to say that I use a professional coach.
Yep.
And she is challenging as all heck,
Mm-hmm.
but it helps me create space. Working out helps me create space.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can journal. That may help you create space.
Sure.
But try to figure out what helps you create space. That'll slow
Mm-hmm.
things down. That'll help you be more balanced.
Mm-hmm. I think what's important, what you're saying there is, you talk about having a boss that will sit and recognize those things, but still have the expectations, the higher expectations. I think what a lot of people would question is, well, I'm not in that situation. I'm in a situation where my boss knows I'm a high achiever and my desk is the messiest in the office. And guess who put, when that new project comes in, guess where it goes? On the messiest desk. That's always been the old adage. How does somebody who wants to get ahead, who wants to advance in their career, how do they say no? How do they explain the buckets or show that this is what they want to do and that they still want to be a outstanding employee and outstanding contributor, but they're looking for more and they're trying to make sure to do that? Because I think I hear what you're saying, but I can just imagine that mid-level employee alumni who's out there right now going, yeah, buddy, that sounds great. But in my world, what would you tell them?
Yeah, when the rubber hits the road.
Right.
It's really hard to limit yourself. And what I mean by that is you're going to do all the work set on your desk if you don't have options.
Mm-hmm.
Also, trying to take a big step back and say, why do I want to move up?
Mm-hmm.
Is it pay? Is it because I want more responsibility? Is it because I want more notoriety?
Mm-hmm.
Be really honest with yourself. Because one, I can always tell you, you'll spend more that you get every time. The stress of being noticed, that fades away pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope it'll be some greater calling that you want to do something.
Mm-hmm.
That greater calling also has to be balanced with, are you willing to move? Are you willing to travel?
Mm-hmm.
If you're stuck with a boss that just keeps piling pieces on, there are a couple of really quick solutions. One, go through your job description and try to set clear expectations with your boss. Hey, simply, Nick, I'd love to have a conversation. I really feel like I'm all over the place with what your expectations are of me. And I want to make sure I'm hitting them out of the park.
Right.
Could we go through my workload and my job description? Because I don't want to miss anything. Sounds really different than I'm really overworked and you keep putting stuff on my desk.
Mm-hmm.
That'll allow you to have a conversation that says, okay, this might not be matched up.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those job descriptions have percentages of how much time they'll spend on something.
Mm-hmm.
You can go through that and say, this percentage is way higher.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be a productive conversation. The other piece that I would give as an advice is don't work for a bad boss. And most folks don't know that they're bad bosses.
Yep.
They don't intentionally get up in the morning and say, man, you know who I'm going to get under the skin of? Nick Taylor. I'm going to make this guy cry today.
Right.
So a lot of times they don't know that.
Right.
They don't have a mechanism for good feedback. They may be pulled in different directions. They may be at the same spot where they didn't have anybody to role model for them.
Right.
So in what way can you manage up? How can you manage your boss? I've been really lucky that I can look back on my career and say, I've had a lot of really good bosses.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times folks don't recognize what a good boss is or a bad boss is early in their career.
Mm-hmm.
When you're young in your career, you think a good boss is anyone who spends time with you.
Right.
Not the behaviors they're displaying.
That's, and you mentioned with that, when you talk about the good boss, bad boss, intention is everything. Nobody intends that. I always use, nobody thinks they're the villain. Nobody in the world thinks that they're a villain. And yet we villainize coworkers, people on the other side. We won't get into politics. We talked about that earlier, right? We villainize everyone pretty quickly and we don't ask about their intentions. But you said something a little earlier there that kind of caught my attention about at the pinnacle, chief officer leadership position and where you talked about having a career coach and a mentor. I think a lot of times people think that, once you reached that point, you're supposed to turn around and now you're the mentor for everybody else. You don't talk about the importance of mentorship at the C-suite level, but also, what is a career coach? How does someone go out and find someone like that? Where do we look for someone like that?
Yeah, those are all great questions. The first piece I would start with is your professional golfers have a coach. Mm-hmm. The Detroit Lions have a coach. Mm-hmm. Folks that are the highest achieving have somebody who can be objective and challenging, and that care about your well-being and your growth. That's what a coach is. When we talk about being coachable, that's that, Carol Dewick mindset. Like, I'm not doing it to complete this drill to perfection. I'm doing this to grow. So you need somebody who can be objective, somebody who can slow it down and talk through, why did you make the decisions you made? That person can also take on the perspective of others in the room.
Yeah.
Karl, when you said this, how do you think such and such felt? Or provide you with more information than you have. So that coach is so very important. I got into that probably an early part in my career. I was working at Case Western Reserve University, and I started taking courses in emotional intelligence. And I was in a course in emotional intelligence where they were recording you during meetings and outside of your work environment to figure out how you could read the situation, how you could connect with others. And I had a moment that was recorded on me. And Nick, you're familiar. I like to dabble as being a past used to be athlete. I was playing flag football with a bunch of faculty members and a couple students, and a play had not went well. And I did not react well to how the play had went. And 2 days later, I watched the film with my coach. And it wasn't that the lens was focused on me. It was focused on everybody else's body language while I was having my little episode. And I think I was like 27, 28.
Sure.
Right? And what was great about that is I could see how that moment affected the next 5 plays, the interactions after the game, and then doing follow-up interviews. Without a coach or somebody outside,
Sure.
I would have never gotten that feedback, and I would have never developed. It was probably at that moment where I figured out my gift is, how do I build a team?
Right.
How do I have emotional intelligence that connects with everyone? How can I read the room? How can I create an environment that pushes us towards pieces? You asked, how do you find a coach?
Yeah.
So a coach is different than a mentor.
Okay.
Right?
Talk about that, because I would have lumped them together.
Yeah. So a mentor can take me to coffee. They can give me advice. And a mentor, I can choose not to take your advice.
Sure.
I have mentors in different aspects that I may pick different pieces up from. And then I can challenge a mentor at a certain point, right? A mentor also has probably been through a career path that you won't. No one's career path is the same. Right. And the mentor is going to give you advice or may, push you in a way that makes sense from their trajectory. Right. The dots only connect when you look backwards.
Right.
And the dots really connect for that mentor when they look backwards for them. A coach, one, is someone you pay.
Yeah.
It should be someone who's certified.
Yep.
They've been through real training, a real program. There's a couple different places you can go to get a certified coach. They should have a coaching certificate. They should be really objective. Coaches ask questions. They make you think. Mentors give you perspective, give you some advice, all those different pieces. Coaches ask you questions.
Is it possible, I'm thinking about that mid-level manager out there, when whatever organization, whatever field they're in, how do they find the coach? Is it, we get on Google and we Google everything, we talk about technology impact on it. Is it something organizations might offer? Like, I'm a mid-level manager and I'm really interested and I want to get to this point. Where do I start?
It's a great question. Some organizations will have a contract with a company that have coaches. I would lean into your supervisor. Hey, I'd like some coaching. Do you have any connections? Because if you can get your organization to help you with the funding for that, that can be really powerful. Reach out through your connections. You may have someone who uses a coach that you don't know about. I have worked with some tremendous organizations. I was a member and worked for Telos. They have some tremendous coaches there. But there are also tons of great coaches out there. If you go through some of the certifications and look for a coach, that can help. You can find a coach that just does that industry or something a little wider.
Going back to something you talked about earlier, your buckets, I look at it like, okay, if we're going to put 100% into our career bucket, if we're looking at professional coaching, we see what Dan Campbell makes for the Lions, right? It's not cheap,
No.
But it makes me go back to that whole, time being currency, and then sometimes there's actual currency involved, and that's an investment that if you're really committed to it, it shouldn't be easy. I shouldn't be able to walk out in the street and find a good coach. I probably have to find someone with those certifications and
definitely the certifications. Yeah.
So let's continue on the conversation and talk about kind of the evolution of the C-suite executive. We keep using the term C-suite. I'm talking about any head of a division, the pinnacle of that area. Talking about generational, you and I are of similar age. I like to remind everybody you're a little older. But being Gen X out there, we have a different viewpoint on the top of the top. What changes do you see coming down the road on that, senior leadership position as we get closer and now have millennials and Gen Z who are earning their way into those positions? What do you think their impact might be?
It's a great question. I go back to the previous part of your question. Gen Xers who find themselves in the C-suite are supervising some boomers, supervising some Gen Xers, supervising millennials. Then they have some Gen Zs, some Gen Xs. So they really are at this point where they're seeing a mixing pot of everything. And they find themselves closer to the latter part of the generation than the bottom part. So that can bring with it some challenges. The biggest challenge with that generation being at the C-suite is we have traditionally looked at work as I am at a place, I am touching a thing, therefore I'm punched in and I'm working. What obviously the pandemic taught us, and what this younger generation already knew, because they were writing papers on their phone, in their car, was I don't have to be there to produce high work. My personal story, I worked at Ford Motor Company during the summers when I was going through school. I had to be at Ford Motor Company putting rotors on axles 425 times an hour. Yep. There was no substitute for that. Those generations don't have those experiences, but also are able to do things from multiple locations and also produce higher quality work. So the infusion of artificial intelligence and the ability to draw talent from anywhere is that next challenge of the C-suite, because the very fabric of what is work, or how do you do work, how do I know you're working, right, is different than what we had traditionally thought it was. The piece that anyone at the C-suite that may be a little older in their generation has to try to get over is, do they have to be on site to do this work? And, I've had a multitude of different positions, and where I had my police force. Yeah, they got to be on site. Yep. Right? There's no doubt the police force has got to be on site. There's no way for you not to do your job, right? Any of our nursing professionals, you can't start an IV, not being on site. It's not going to happen, right? But if you talk about our communication professionals, and you talk about some of our folks that work in membership at the Children's Hospital Association, well, you've worked in admissions and you work in alumni affairs. Most of the folks you want to talk to are not on site. Right. I want you out at the hospital. I want you interacting with people. So I think that concept of work is challenging now.
I want you to put your coaching hat on, but also from your current position as a C-suite executive, how do you define success in the role? What is, and I bring that because I think if I'm an alum out there who is trying to decide, am I happy where I'm at, or do I want to continue and trying to move up I always think about outcomes. What are the outcomes I'm really trying to get? So how are you going to define success at the senior level?
Such a great question, Nick. So one of my favorite books is by John Wooden. And on the cover, it's Wooden on Leadership. He has a definition of success that you did the best you could, right? That you gave your best effort on that day. For someone who is striving to become the C-suite, then they may think their best is being at the C-suite and they're not there. So then they don't think they're successful. But, when you think about the C-suite, there is a pyramid involved there. There's only so many seats. Right. And you have to be able to do some sacrifices, and it takes a lot of luck. It just does. If you were to say success, how can you be at peace with giving great effort? That's what I would kind of combine those two pieces of, how can I be okay with I gave my best effort and here is where I am. My grandmother had a saying, life isn't fair. Fair is a place where pigs get ribbons for being fat. And
I love that.
And so when we try to look at what's fair, it's got to be fair to you. You have to have some semblance of peace with how things have shaked out. And I've learned that even more working with the Children's Hospital Association. We have kids all across the country that are fighting for their lives. You can't look at that kid and say, They're 3 years old. What was fair about this?
Right.
Right? How can you provide great care? How can you give that family and that child some semblance of peace while they're doing their best?
Mm-hmm.
Because what's success look like to them?
Right. 100%. And I think what's interesting about this is we always talk about the organizational goals and the organizational aspect of success. And I think part of maybe not deciding what level you want to be if you want to advance in your career and move up, but more about where you're at is important about determining, are the institution or organization's goals matching what intrinsically you want to get out of it. And I think people in the right environment will continue to want to move up. So it might be a good, and this is me spitballing here, so if you got theory behind this or refute it, please refute it. But I think people in the right environment, if you have an organization where you have a lot of people who are trying to move up, it might be a really good sign that the organization's goals are on par and definitely something of value. But then also if you have people who, not necessarily, but people who could be inspirational but are not being, then that might say something more about those goals.
My number one goal is to create a culture that people want to work here and can grow. All that other stuff are marks I need to hit with our revenue. They are how I need to engage our members. When I worked in higher ed, it was how many students I needed to have come in missions. All that meant nothing. It was about me trying to create a culture where folks loved to come to work and they felt like they could grow. That is really hard to do. It's so much easier to hit your revenue goal.
Right.
It's so much easier to do these numerical pieces than to spend time with people, than to have difficult conversations. When you are at a C-suite and you realize that your job is about culture, then better decisions happen.
Right.
Then you're able to delegate tasks. Then people want to flock and work in that environment. People will stay. People are like plants. All of a sudden, they've got a ton of sunlight and they're growing. But I think that big difference of being a really good executive is understanding that your number one goal is about culture. And then those other pieces will take care of themselves.
So I absolutely hear what you're saying. But say I'm sitting here, I'm in my career and I want to rise to that level because I want to have influence. I want to change. You're talking about the culture of the organization and affecting that. Maybe it's my naive experience or viewpoint, but if I'm someone out there who wants to move up, I'm always worried about my metrics. My KPIs are drilled in my head. I can report them out to you. I know where we're at any time. And I think that's my way to success. Are you saying that, yes, you have to do that, but you have to be better at or more in tune with workplace culture to rise up in that level?
Yeah, there's two sides of work, right? There's task-oriented behaviors and then there's relationship maintenance. Right? Those are not separate from each other. They are overlapping circles, right? Venn diagrams. I have to know what I'm being measured on to be successful. I need to know what levers to pull. A good executive probably doesn't have a real clear understanding of how the rotors are put on the axles in Ford.
Right.
But they really do understand the relationship between the folks that are working within departments and how to problem solve. When we look at those two different circles, task-oriented and behavior maintenance, a lot of executives will ignore the behavior maintenance. And that's where you get turnover. That's where you get people who won't grow. That's when you get real problems in trust. So I'm not saying only do that side.
Sure.
I'm saying you're going to have to recognize those pieces. As a middle manager, that's tough, right? Because you have the pressure from the person above. And the person above may all be task-oriented. If you have supervisees, how can you do both of those circles in a way where you don't feel like you're always leaning into the soft skills of work, right? It has to have some benefit to it.
Right.
How do you do it up? What I mean by that is, if you're in middle management, is there a way you can communicate to your supervisor about pieces that are affecting the culture? The great piece that affects culture, there is a metric called turnover.
Yeah.
That you could point to. Now, there are some pieces around compensation that can, push that either way, but that is something you can push back on. The other piece that I would always say is there is a time to leave.
Yeah.
That's tough because folks got to pay their mortgage.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. I agree with you wholeheartedly on the Venn diagram of bringing those two in. I also look at it that it's situational, especially when you're talking about turnover as a metric of workplace culture, because there are some positions, we have a lot here at the university where, hey, if you're here for a couple of years and then you develop and you move up, that is a great sign. So the turnover happens. Now, if you're here and you're, leaving to go work for another university at the same level or below, then that's a sign. So I think there's a lot to that turnover metric in there, more than just people coming and going in it. All right, we're getting to the end. We're getting close to the end, and one thing that we do here every time is I ask the guests to picture that alumni out there. In your case, this an alumni is out there trying to make the decision on whether or not they really want to go all in, fill the career bucket, as you put it, all in, and go for that senior leadership C-suite level. What is going to be your, we call them BHAGs, big hairy goal. What's going to be your one piece of advice for that person that you would want them to walk away from our conversation and like have burned in their brain and be able to keep out?
I'm going to vary from what you asked by saying two things, right?
You're always breaking the rules.
I know.
Come on.
So the first piece is, if you've got it in your mind that you're going to do this and nobody else has told you you're going to do this, then you've got a gap right away. Early in my career, I had folks who told me I was going to do these things, and that helped me. I had some visions and some dreams, but it was when folks said, I can see you can do this. So if you are the only one thinking you're going to go to the MBA, you might not, right?
And we see that all the time.
You may have some pretty big blind spots that you need to get some coaching on. You need to figure that out.
Okay.
So the first piece is somebody will tell you, right? And it should be somebody who you respect, and maybe somebody you supervise, maybe one of your peers, all those different pieces. Early in my career, higher ed is like a pyramid, right? I was at a point where I had 5 different peers, and there was a job opening, and every single one of them said, well, that's your job. You do that right now. It's not even a competition. I was like, oh okay. So some people will tell you that. To the second part of your question, what big piece of advice I would say is you have to be humble and learn. A lot of times folks will get really full of themselves. That's where having a good coach, that's where reading, that's where being unafraid to fail comes in really handy. At the executive level, you don't get to fail a lot. You will have to take some chances now to learn. So try to figure out when is appropriate for you to take a chance, but always try to stay somewhat humble and learn.
It's awesome. Well, hey, I appreciate your time and your effort here, and I learned a lot, which I always do when we have a good conversation. So I appreciate now not only you coming in and helping us here with our podcast and getting that message out, but I thank you for your friendship as well, and appreciate all that you bring. So for those of you out there, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been the Stand Out in Your Career podcast presented by Alumni Relations. If you want more of this, more episodes, more content, things that you might be looking for in helping with your career, be sure to go to svsu.edu/alumni. We have a link there to all of our podcasts and all of our great guests like Dr. Karl Rishe. And be sure to reach out, let us know how we can help you in your career, and let us know how we can connect you with SVSU. As always, we love it when our alumni stand out in their community. We appreciate your time and efforts, and it's a great day to be a Cardinal. Take care.